First of all, thank you, Liz, for everything and for having us here. I did come up from North Carolina, and it was a bit of a trip, but it was fun, enjoyable. There can be a 5-minute session after Q&A on the Odyssey. So I'd like to start a little bit. We can look at the slides and we can go through these questions. I'd like to speak to you sort of from myself about what we're doing and the why. How familiar within the room do we have with the U.S. trading ecosystem in the exchanges? I don't want to use any jargon or any acronyms, or Mr. Caldwell will strangle me. Okay, so I'll just sort of frame this discussion around the why we're doing what we're doing, particularly when you look at when was the last time there was any innovation in the U.S. capital market system. And the answer will probably surprise you. It was 20 years ago, decimalization. So we stopped using fractions and calling out orders. Since then, it's been an enormous technological arms race. We've electronified, we've gone from the no longer ringing a bell to start the trading day at 9:30. So there was a bit of evolution from 9:30 to 4 where trading occurred. It's the most liquid market in the world and everybody wants to participate in it. Then there was an expansion of just electronic trading starting at 4 a.m., the pre-market, until 9:30. And then after 4, you could trade until 8 p.m. So you had this larger segment that was created, but the 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. space has been left devoid for eternity. Many people have gone about and tried to extend exchange trading hours into that time frame, but they have been unsuccessful. We are now the absolutely only broker-dealer authorized by FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, the heavy lifting arm for the Security and Exchange Commission, to operate an alternative trading system. Looks very much like an exchange. We're just as thoroughly governed, but there's just a little bit less of regulatory things that we have to do. And I'm really understating a little bit less. So when I go outside and I look at the industry that I've been a part of for 25 years, I'm frustrated by the fact that we haven't come to the conclusion that the Earth rotates on an axis and the sun, and there's this thing called time zones. And when we discuss the 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. space with folks in the US, they sort of spit out at us, well, I don't want to stay up all night and trade. And I said, well, that's very well and good, but there are lots of other people that live on this planet who do run, and it's astonishing because I've worked in these institutions and we've had overnight desks in Asia, particularly the most, where an entire firm's trading operation will literally be up all night from their 8 p.m., right, or 8 a.m., to be able to trade in the U.S. Makes absolutely no sense. Why hasn't anybody done this? Why hasn't anybody gone out into this segment? So I'm going to move along through these little things here because I think this is more important. What are we trying to do? Well, we've already done most of it. We've closed that gap. We are up and running and we are trading with the likes of E-Trade, TD Ameritrade, Charles Schwab, and soon to be many more. But the big demand pull is coming out of Asia. Samsung Securities, Murray Asset Management are trading on this platform and they're offering it out to their retail customers on their phones, and we see just tons and tons of trades where people now across the other side of the Pacific are actually able to buy a share of Apple. Unable to do this previously. You could do it on a local stock exchange, but you're going to pay a hefty premium to do so, and probably at a bad price. So this, I can use the word democratize. I think it's just completely overloaded. But the part about Blue Ocean for us that I'm really, really passionate about is giving access to everyone to be able to invest when it's convenient for them. it's absolutely ridiculous that you have to kowtow, and it's I am a U.S. citizen, but it is a very U.S.-centric policy. We're open here, we go to work at 9:30, we're done, everyone else is done. It incenses me, and it's always bothered me. So in my early time in meeting the founders of Blue Ocean and having these discussions, this just made sense to me. What also made sense to me is being a data person, that this data on how the rest of the world views trading, views securities, particularly just listening to the previous speaker on ETFs, that the underlying securities can be trading 24 hours a day, is fascinating. But you're also probably scratching your head saying, why hasn't somebody just done this before? Why hasn't the New York Stock Exchange just simply extended their hours? Well, the devil's always in the details. I'm pressing the button. There we go. The news cycle. So we actually open, if you think about this, on Sunday night at 8 p.m. How many of you watch the markets in the news over the weekend and wait for 9:30 to occur or for the markets to open?
8 o'clock on Sunday night. That's what I'm waiting
Okay, now's your time because you can actually trade. We're all watching the futures market, where all the larger institutions are looking at this and they're placing bets because they have the money to do so. Well, I have a Blue Ocean version of the Dow 30 stocks, and I find it to be much more interesting because it's actually indicative of what people are really trading. So when we look at this and we present this, the trading day starts in Asia for the United States now. That's a big statement to make. The other equity markets, unlike derivatives and futures, they do shut down at night. The implications for the retail investor, and this is really where I come from, the institutional investors, the larger investors, they have the capital to be able to manage risk with options and with futures. And they have the sophisticated algorithms and capital to do it. Do all of us individually have the ability to do that? Do we have the time if we're interested in trading? The next generation, right, I'm getting a little bit older, below me are much more savvy on what they do with their money. They're putting money into retail accounts in very small amounts. You might have heard of fractionalized shares. This is increasing the amount of order flow that's out there. This pie is growing. So when you look at a 24-hour clock, if we are now up and running trading from 8 p.m. EDT to 4 a.m. EDT, you now, if you're an E-Trade or a TD Ameritrade, like I discussed, if you want to, you can simply build your trading app to concatenate all of those trading sessions into one contiguous, seamless order, which they have done. But you can also look at that and say, that's a heck of a lot of work to do. What do people at banks typically do, or most companies do, when their customers or markets are closed, or their customers are not active? Well, software upgrades. I'm a native technologist, right? So what do we do when everybody else is gone? This is when we get all of our work done. This is when back office processing gets done. This is a critical time to do things. Over the last 5 to 6 years, with the advent of crypto, and I'm not going to go on a crypto speech here, but what broker dealers have had to do is set aside some technology to continue it because it runs endlessly. It never stops. It's 24/7 by 365. So in order to offer those products out to customers, they've had to move some infrastructure off to the side. I've had to do this myself and in previous jobs to keep your tech up and running. But you don't have to do all of it. So as the evolution continues with the technology inside of banks, it's much easier to approach trading equities in this space than it was previously. So we're benefiting from that, and those pathways are being created. So why have people not done it? So does anybody have an idea? This is a fascinating question because the SEC did not know this themselves. When does the next trading day officially start? You would think 9:30 tomorrow morning, The official open? No, it's 8 p.m. tonight. They didn't know the answer to that question when I asked them. So if a stock splits tomorrow, do I start changing the price tonight at 8? Well, that's not going to make sense to anybody. What do you do with these sorts of situations? So we've solved a lot of these problems. How about clearing and settling your transactions during the day? This is a real-time event. Your trades are delivered to a clearing agency. You guys might recall the Robinhood GameStop incident where they just blew up in volume and had to shut it down. It wasn't because they deliberately just said, we can't do this. From a clearing side where the actual trades and the shares, let's just say the paper shares are traded, they're the ones who own the risk. And they said, you just don't have enough capital to do this. You may be matching a buyer and seller, but we're not going to be able to deal with this. So these challenges exist in the overnight space here in the US. I don't like to use overnight anymore because it's really a global picture that we're talking about. Partnering with new firms that are pioneering in real-time settlement will be very strategic for us. Again, I'm not going to put any forward-leading statements in here lest Liz comes up and grabs me. How do we work on this? How does trading actually work? It's a really, really simple business, and it might explain a little bit why there's been such an evolutionary process instead of a revolutionary one. In the early 2000s was a really, really exciting time. We were moving off of paper, we were electronifying, we got things to move faster, as I discussed. But what's really changed? And the answer is not much. So we've accumulated in this industry a tremendous amount of operational and technical debt. It's very, very hard to go and challenge things and say, well, I want our market data to be available publicly when all of the platforms that are regulated only run from 9:30 to 4. These things in here now, we're running into these walls, but we're the first to go run at them and we're knocking them down. The legacy way of trading equities only during those core hours as I described, it's not going to sustain for very much longer. In terms of the business of trading, it's a buyer and a seller. It's really not hard. And it applies to anything that any of us do every day. So given the simplicity of the business, you would think that these things would not be that difficult to do. In fact, they're very, very difficult. So the barrier to entry in the overnight space to close that gap is hard for a reason. So we've been at this for a while. We've been doing this. There had been founding partners prior to myself, and we've been at this, and we've been live for about 1.5 years now. It's a bit of a slog, and it's a bit of a challenge. But the response is there. Across the Pacific Rim, to be able to say you can trade in the US ecosystem during your daytime is a big statement, is a really, really big statement. Probably our largest amount of growth will come from there over the next, call it 1 to 2 years, but now we're seeing the interest in Europe as well. Can we get in, earlier than 4 a.m. and beat the bigger guys to the punch? The answer is yes, and why not? I think I've beat to death the hours of operation. We do follow, from a technical perspective, the exact same market structure as those pre and post sessions from 4 a.m. to 9:30 and from 4 p.m. to 8. So we've kept it simple and matched the same structure so that it's actually easier for people to come and do business with us. So it's just a limit order, no market orders, right? It's very, very pedestrian in that sense. We're fully transparent. If you look at the ATSs in the US, there's about 30 of them. They're all what we call dark. And this is where large institutions go to get orders done that they don't want to put in the very efficient public marketplace. We are what we call lit. All of our market data, our quotes and trades, we provide market data feeds. A lot of the other ATSs don't do that. We also report to what's called the tape, and this is another nice legacy term for all of us. We send all of our trades to FINRA, and they're able to see all of these things. So everyone on the street can see what we're doing. So we're not hiding in the shadows like the other dark pools and things that you see. We're out there, we're public, and we're ready to do business. How do you get involved in doing this? We only have customers that are qualified U.S. broker-dealers. So in other words, I would not take, say, Richard Carlton here on as an individual customer for many reasons, but he's not a U.S. broker-dealer to himself, but I think the KYC process might just knock him out. But the important thing here is that our customers, and this gives us a high degree of confidence in what we're doing, is that our only customers are brother and sister broker-dealers themselves. They sponsor clients in. So we don't connect in people directly unless they are a U.S. broker-dealer. So it raises the bar of our customers and allows us to bring people onto the platform and do a lot less due diligence because they've had to go through the same due diligence that we've had to go through. Brokers, you can go to our website, you can simply look at the information to be onboarded. It often doesn't take much. If your broker-dealer is not trading or not connected to what we call the blue ocean session, a couple of customer complaint emails is usually enough to get them interested. When I look at this opportunity, there's things that come to mind. This is a huge chunk of real estate that we're the only operator in. And the SEC is keeping a very close eye on us. When we started this, they were very, very cautious not to allow other, which we would welcome, competition. It's not an exclusive thing in this industry. The more people that are doing it, it benefits the market as a whole. They're observing us very, very carefully because what will change to the rule sets in that those other trading segments would likely have to be pushed to a 24-hour cycle. And this poses a whole bunch of interesting questions, which I'm going to leave time because I hope you all ask me about. We feel that we're very, very well poised. We're a year and a half in. The amount of demand, the sort of FOMO that we've created around this, at industry conferences where we go to, people are talking about us now. Our digital marketing, our advertising, it's paying off. Liz?
10 minutes, you're good for Q&A.
Anybody have any hard questions? I love hard questions. Yes, sir.
Are you the start of the day or that's right?
Microphone. Sorry, Morgan.
That's okay. I can hear you. So the question was, am I the start of the day?
Who's on the mic anyway?
Morgan Pompey with Caldwell Securities. 8 p.m. is usually is now the end of the day.
Correct.
Would you be the start of the day?
Yes.
Or you are the start of the day?
We are the start of the day.
And that has, for all the interesting implications of, where you lie on the capital, using firm capital.
Absolutely. So when you look at that too, there's that jagged point that if you're a trading platform, and let's use Amazon as an example, and it's $3,500, and then at 8:01 your broker-dealer rolls all of those orders that haven't been executed, and they roll them in, and now that's split by 20. That's very interesting if you're sitting there looking at your screen at 8:01 and say, wow, the price went down by divided by 20. So what do? We actually halt the stock from trading prior to going in, because the experience to anybody would patently not make any sense. So large corporate action events like that, when we are the start, we don't do them. We halt the stocks from trading. We don't even know for a fact. We have to look at tons of data to make sure that they roll through the next day's core hours where all of this legacy tech works, let that sort through, and then we trade them the next day. So it's a bit of a disadvantage on events like that. The Sunday night open again at 8 o'clock being a marquee feature.
Hi, Armando here. Assuming you become very successful, how do you protect yourself from future competition?
That's a great question. Competition. What's interesting when you look at how the exchanges have moved through time, the more of them that have been added, it used to be just the New York Stock Exchange and say the NASDAQ. And then you had the advent of BATS. What BATS is better ATS, right? So they're sort of the same path as us. The more exchanges that appeared, the more efficient and the more competition there was in liquidity in the marketplace. So competition for us isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? The more people that would join us in this space would help us pave the way through a lot of these legacy issues. So there has been a company, 24X, that has filed to be a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week exchange to trade equities. They filed it with the SEC, and it was a really thin document. And in my opinion, what they went out to do was, during the public comment period, see if people like me would answer some of the questions for them. And sort of clickbait. We weren't going to take part of that. So we commented and just noted that you didn't address any of these problems. They could be successful in their filing, to your point. If we were ever to consider extending our hours, that would only make it easier for us to do, and there would be more people there. But then I'm going to come back to a point I made before. If there's more than one in that space, the protection rules that are in the 9:30 to 4 would likely have to start applying around the clock. And that's a huge, 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 I cannot understate, implication to the US regulatory system. So how that happens, we're not concerned about competition. We welcome that competition because we think it will be better for a retail investor. We think the pricing will be better. There'll be more liquidity, if that answers your question. So it's not a one business model where it's just us and we capture it. There's going to be more people that enter. It's just we're going to be the first mover, and it's tough. It really is.
Hi.
Do you have any investors that are broker-dealers? So are any of your clients investors?
That will be something to discuss at the next investor day. Perhaps. But it's a fantastic question because it obviously makes complete sense for participants that are on the platform to be incentivized to put order flow onto the platform as well. So that is something that we're very, very interested in having our largest trading partners become investors.